Hi, I'm Bethany with Shabby Fabrics, and today I'm so excited to finally introduce to you the woven fabric berry basket. You may have seen when we did the tutorial for the little strawberry pin cushions that in some of the marketing photos, we had this basket and all of the strawberries in there. Well, we got a lot of requests and comments asking us where's the pattern for the basket. So I did want to say that this is our final product that we ended up with. It's a little different than the original basket, and that's because this one was not very good. It was cute, but I whipped it up together pretty fast, and it's mostly held together with glue and like me wishing really hard that it won't fall apart. You can see here it's not very sturdy, and if I took my strawberries and put them all in here, you can see this kind of just loses its shape really fast. The basket that we have here, we did some development and we found a way to put this all together so it's super sturdy, it's gonna last, and most of all, it's teachable. It's something I can instruct you on, where this one was just kind of like, hope it works, put it together. So let's get right into the new and improved fabric berry basket. So we are gonna start with some strips of fabric. That's gonna be what we use to weave here. And to give this some integrity and help it to keep its shape and make it easier to weave, I have taken Heat and Bond Ultra Holds and fused interfacing over that. We're using Pellon's Sure-Tailor 950F. I fused that together. So I've got interfacing on this side. And we are just gonna fuse this to the center of our strip here. Now, you may notice that my strip is double the size of my interfacing. What I wanted was there to be as much fabric folded inside of this strip as there is on the outside, because every little bit of that is gonna add a bit more sturdiness to this project, to these strips that we're making for weaving, and just makes it easier to weave these together. So we're gonna fuse this down, and then we'll be folding both of these edges of fabric in over the interfacing, and then folding this strip in half. And if you're making a few of these at a time, I like to maybe let this one cool while I iron the next one before I start folding it. The interfacing and the heat and bond, when it's warm, is a bit more like pliable or malleable. I like it when it's nice and cool because it holds its shape a bit more, and I get a nice crisp edge when I go to fold this over. So I'm just gonna let this air out a little bit, and then we'll take this at our iron and press these sides over. And I like that layer of interfacing with the heat and bond gives me a nice edge to turn over. And then you're gonna have a couple different size, 2 different size strips that you'll be doing. The like vertical basket strips are going to be finishing at 1 inch, and then the horizontal ones that go around will be finishing at 3/4 inch. And all the instructions are gonna be in the pattern. That pattern will be a free download available, but we are also making kits for this basket. So if you want, you can get that on the website. It'll have all the fabric, interfacing, and heat and bond that you need to make one whole basket here. So when that's together here, we're gonna fold this in half again. And this is where I like to pull in some wonder clips to keep this together. Sometimes it has a tendency to uncurl, and I want it to keep it together while I'm getting it ironed so I can get it to my machine without it unfurling. All right, and now we're ready to take this over to our machine and start sewing. And we're just gonna sew along the outer edges of this whole strip about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. I'd say 1/8 to 1/16 to 1/4. Just keep it consistent in all your strips. Okay, we're done with that strip. This is actually one of the skinny ones that we're gonna use horizontally. We're not here for this one yet. We're not ready for this one yet. So I'm gonna set that aside and pull out one I've already prepped, okay? For our base and the sides of this, we are gonna cut these to 14 inches. I like the Karen K. Buckley scissors for this because this is pretty sturdy now that we've got all those layers of interfacing and heat and bond. So we're gonna cut these directly to 14, and these scissors are great for cutting right through all those layers. And you're gonna need 8 of these. Okay. And I'm just using my mat here to measure that. These are a little oversized, so they don't need to be exact or perfectly square to each other. We just need to get it close. Okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we're gonna start with 4 of these together, kind of pretty close together, just next to each other, and then we're gonna start our weaving. And I'm gonna grab a little handful of wonder clips because I'll need a few of those as I go. And I can see that this is about 4 inches wide, so the 4 inches in the middle is where I want to position my next strips. So I'm just gonna lift 2 up. And it doesn't really matter if you start with these 2 or these 2, as long as you just keep doing the opposite ones on the next round, okay? So my next 2 come up. I'll weave these in. And I'm kind of doing this a little crude right now. I will go in and get these a little bit tighter, but just for my initial placement. I'm gonna get these in, okay? You can see it looks a little crazy. And now I'm gonna start adjusting. You might wanna maybe grab a friend or a helper to help kind of keep things stable. But I found that I was able to just squish these together and get them pretty even. And my ends are mostly even on the tops and bottoms. Again, they're oversized, so we don't need them perfectly flush with each other. And then I'm gonna use some wonder clips, and I have found that I can put these just in the corners, and that's sufficient for me to get this to my machine to do some sewing. And what we're gonna do is stitch right along the edge of this. Imagine this is a square here. And basically where my original stitching is before, I'm gonna follow that. That just adds a little bit of stability to this to help us when we go to weave. It also helps us crease these little strips here for when we go to our next step. All right, I'm gonna trim my threads here. There we go. Okay. And then we're gonna take out some measurements here. Our next little bit of strips are gonna be based off of how wide these are. I didn't do a set measurement on this because everyone's weaving might be a little tighter or looser than everyone else's. So we're gonna measure how far, or like how wide this space is here. Mine is about 4 1/4, and I'm just gonna make sure they're all about the same. 4 1/4, 4.25. We're gonna multiply that by 4 because there's 4 sides. That is 17. Okay, so you take your number of however, the 4 sides added together. You're gonna add a 1/2 inch to that for your seam allowance. So mine would be 17 1/2. And I'm gonna cut 3 strips, 17 1/2. Okay. So this is the one I sewed with you. I'm gonna get a clean edge on this. If I put this at 20, then I know that 37 1/2 is my 17 1/2. And we will be doing 3 of these skinnier strips. Now, when we go to join these together, traditional patchwork has you putting them wrong sides together, sewing with a straight seam, and then opening that up. I wasn't a fan of trying to open up or press a seam like that. So we are actually just going to overlap these by a 1/2 inch. Okay? And then I'm gonna stitch a little box seam around this, okay? And then these raw edges will be hidden inside the basket. So I'm gonna grab a clip and clip these. And this will be our last little bit of sewing. Everything else will be weaving and finishing on this. All right, so my 3 rings are done. I'm gonna trim any excess threads. Now we're ready for the fun part for me, which is the weaving. Starting on any side, we're gonna take 1 ring, and because I want the raw edge here to be hidden inside the basket, to me, the top that I'm looking at here is the inside. I'm gonna place that on a strip that I know will be inward facing. So like if this one's over and this one's under right now, and they're gonna be opposite, I'll place it on an over. There we go. So this is a little hard to describe. It's easier to show. So maybe watch what I do, but if I say it wrong, please forgive me. Okay. So I've got my first 2 down. I'm gonna now flip this up. And I like to use some wonder clips to hold this in place. And we are going to start weaving this around. Okay. And so your first ring's gonna feel a little weird because you're not doing, like these ones are not gonna go inside until you get your next ring on. So it might just feel weird that you have some laying down, but stick with it. And we'll go around, and your ring should be pretty tight to the strips that we've made. So, and by that I mean like your corners are gonna go right to the corner here if you did your measurements like I told you to. Okay. And when I first made mine, I saw this and was like, there's no way this is gonna work. That's way too tight. It does work. You just gotta stick with it. Trust the process, like I always say. Okay, we're gonna get this last one in. Okay, and we are going to manipulate that into place, and we are ready for our second ring. Okay, second ring, again, I want that raw edge to be towards the inside. So I know that is going to be inside, outside. There we go. Okay. And then I will start pulling off wonder clips that I already, like on the layer that I've just done, as I get stuff in place on the ring above it. Okay. Okay, and we'll continue around with this ring and then the next one, and I'll show you once we get all 3 rings in place how we go about finishing this off. Okay, we have got our 3 rings on, and then we did make sure that any seams we had in the rings were towards the inside of the basket. Okay, looks a little crazy, and I did tell you these were oversized. We are going to be cutting these little strips down here. If you see, maybe here, from the top of the ring to the top of the strip, I want no more than 1 3/4 inches. So I'll go through with my ruler and measure and just cut these by hand. They don't need to be perfect. If it's a little, maybe 1 1/2 inches, that's absolutely fine. It just needs to be less than 1 3/4, more than like 1 1/4 inches. So all of these are this, about the same length now. And then this is where the basket really starts coming into shape. We're gonna fold all of these over to the inside or the outside as the weave directs here. And then you may see me kind of go through and pull these tight as I do. We're just trying to make sure that everything's nice and snug. There's no like tightness or looseness. This has to be. Either way we do it, it'll be a great finished product, but I like to just make sure everything is nice and tight. All right, we've got all of our wonder clips in place. You can see our berry basket is starting to take shape. And then we're gonna start with our outside little flaps here. And we are going to be tucking these under that topmost ring, okay? So this might take a little bit of finagling, but I found out of all the methods I tried to make this basket, this one was the easiest. So I like to use my curved tweezers here to help pull this along. And then you can actually go in from the inside and pinch that little piece that's under and pull it up to get that really tight. Okay? We're gonna be doing this for all of the outside flaps, and then we'll do the same thing for the inside, and we'll get a couple shots of this up close so you can really see what we're doing here. Okay, I've got most of my little flaps tucked underneath here. I did want to show you the inside. I actually find these sometimes a little easier. I go mostly off of feel on these, but I'll get this tucked under from the inside. And once I get a little bit of it, I can actually see it from the outside here on the ring and go through and kind of pull that tight, okay? So we'll get all of these, there's only 16 of them to do, so we'll get them all through, and then your basket is done. There's no more sewing or anything. This is a bit thick, so I didn't do any sewing around the top. And this is pretty darn sturdy. When I made this prototype, I went and showed it to some of the office team here at Shabby, and we were throwing it around from desk to desk, and it did not lose its shape at all. But if you need to, if you think you might get a lot of rugged use out of this, maybe you're using it as a toy, you can go in and under the little flaps, maybe put some hot glue or fabric glue to keep that together. But that is your berry basket complete. Again, we're gonna have some kits available in limited quantities, and we do still have the strawberry pincushion kits available. This is filled with emery sand, which does sharpen your needles and take off any little burrs or dings they might have on them, and it does make 2 pincushions there. So thanks so much for giving me some of your time today, and I'll see you on the next Shabby tutorial.